Hi everyone, it's Jim. Great books, big ideas. I would like to do a literary translation shootout today. I have six, count them, six translations, different translations of the Iliad by Homer. And I want to compare the first 35 lines of the poem and see if you want to pick out a favorite. Which ones do you like best? That's coming right up here on Great Books, Big Ideas. You know, I didn't realize I had so many translations of the Iliad in the house. but I'm going to just go through these one by one in no particular order. This first one is a prose translation of the Iliad by E.V. Rieu, who is the very first Penguin classic was his translation of the Odyssey, if I'm not mistaken. We also did a prose translation of the Iliad, and I'd like to, he has a nice introduction to it. And let's just kind of go through the first 30 page, so sort of like my first page test for translations. And in verse, this is maybe the first 35, 36 lines or so, give or take. We start with the invocation of the muses, as we do in typical epic poetry. This is a prose translation. Listen to the pace, listen to the rhythm, listen to the word choices, vocabulary, the diction. You're going to find a lot of differences here, and it's kind of fun to compare. So we'll start with E.V. Rieu. Here we go. The wrath of Achilles is my theme, that fatal wrath which in fulfillment of the will of Zeus brought the Achaeans so much suffering and sent the gallant souls of many noblemen to Hades, leaving their bodies as carrion for the dogs and passing birds. Let us begin, goddess of song, with the angry parting that took place between Agamemnon, king of men, and the great Achilles, son of Peleus. Which of the gods was it that made them quarrel? It was Apollo, son of Zeus and Leto, who started the feud when he punished the king for his discourtesy to Chryses, his priest, by inflicting a deadly plague on his army and destroying his men. Chryses had come to the Achaean ships to recover his captured daughter. He brought with him a generous ransom and carried the chaplet of the archer god Apollo on a golden staff in his hand. He appealed to the whole Achaean army and most of all to its two commanders, the sons of Atreus. My lords, and you, Achaean men-at-arms, you hope to sack King Priam's city and get home in safety. May the gods that live on Olympus grant your wish, on this condition that you show your reverence for the archer god Apollo, son of Zeus, by accepting this ransom and releasing my daughter. The troops applauded. They wished to see the priest respected and the tempting ransom taken, but this was not at all to King Agamemnon's liking. He cautioned the man severely and rudely dismissed him. Old man, he said, do not let me catch you loitering by the hollow ships today, nor coming back again, or you may find the god's staff and chaplet a very poor defense. Far from agreeing to set your daughter free, I intend her to grow old in Argos, in my house, a long way from her own country, working at the loom and sharing my bed. Off with you now, and do not provoke me if you want to save your skin. Agamemnon in a bad mood. That is the E.V. Rieu prose translation. Let's jump now to a new prose translation in Penguin Classics, and this one is by Martin Hammond. And this came out in 1987. The Rieu translation came out in Wow, all the way back to 1930 it was first published. So they did a revised prose translation, Martin, Hammond. Let's compare, shall we? Sing, goddess, of the anger of Achilles, son of Peleus, the accursed anger which brought uncounted anguish on the Achaeans and hurled down to Hades many mighty souls of heroes, making their bodies the prey to dogs and the birds feasting. And this was the working of Zeus's will. Sing from the time of the first quarrel which divided Atreus' son, the lord of men, and godlike Achilles. Which of the gods was it who set these two to their fighting? It was the son of Zeus and Leto. In anger at the king, he raised a vile plague throughout the army, and the people were dying because the son of Atreus had dishonored Chryses, his priest. Chryses had come to the fast ships of the Achaeans to gain release for his daughter, bringing with him unlimited ransom, and holding in his hands the sacred woolen bands of Apollo, the far shooter, wreathed on a golden staff. He began to entreat the whole body of the Achaeans, but especially the two sons of Atreus, the marshals of the army. Sons of Atreus, and you other well-grieved Achaeans, may the gods who live on Olympus grant you the sacking of Priam's city and a safe return to your homes. But release my dear child to me, and accept this ransom in reverence for the son of Zeus, Apollo, the far shooter. Then all the other Achaeans shouted their agreement to respect the priest's claim and take the splendid ransom. But this was not the pleasure of Agamemnon's heart, the son of Atreus. He sent him shamefully on his way with harsh words of command. Old man, let me never find you by our hollow ships, either dallying here now or coming back again in future, or you will have no protection from your god's staff and sacred bands. As for the girl, I shall not release her. Before that, old age will come upon her in our house, in Argos, far from her own country, where she will work at the loom and serve my bed. No, away with you. Do not provoke me if you want to return in safety. That's the Martin Hammond 1987 prose translation. Let's move on to another prose translation, and this one comes from Great Books of the Western World, first edition, and this is English prose translation by Samuel Butler. Sing, O goddess, the anger of Achilles, son of Peleus, that brought countless ills upon the Achaeans. Many a brave soul did it send hurrying down to Hades, and many a hero did it yield a prey to dogs and vultures. For so were the counsels of Jove fulfilled from the day on which the son of Atreus, king of men, and great Achilles first fell out with one another. And which of the gods was it that set them on to quarrel? It was the son of Jove and Leto, for he was angry with the king and sent a pestilence upon the host to plague the people, because the son of Atreus had dishonored Chryses, his priest. Now Chryses had come to the ships of the Achaeans to free his daughter and had brought with him a great ransom. Moreover, he bore in his hand the scepter of Apollo, wreathed with a suppliant's wreath, and he besought the Achaeans, but most of all the two sons of Atreus, who were their chiefs. Sons of Atreus, he cried, and all other Achaeans, may the gods who dwell in Olympus grant you to sack the city of Priam and to reach your homes in safety, but free my daughter, and accept a ransom for her in reverence to Apollo, son of Jove. On this, the rest of the Achaeans with one voice were for respecting the priest and taking the ransom that he offered, but not so Agamemnon, who spoke fiercely to him and sent him roughly away. Old man, said he, let me not find you tarrying about our ships, nor yet coming hereafter. Your scepter of the god and your wreath shall profit you nothing. I will not free her. She shall grow old in my house at Argos, far from her own home, busying herself with her loom and visiting my couch. So go, and do not provoke me, or it shall be the worse for you. That's Samuel Butler, Great Books of the Western World. Now let's turn to verse translations. I have the Heritage Press edition of the very famous Alexander Pope translation from the 18th century. This translation got a lot of praise. It's written all in heroic couplets, so rhymed iambic pentameter. So let's see how Alexander Pope handles the first page. Are we ready? Alexander Pope, here we go. Achilles' wrath. To Greece, the direful spring of woes unnumbered, heavenly goddess, sing. That wrath, which hurled to Pluto's gloomy reign the souls of mighty chiefs untimely slain, whose limbs unburied on the naked shore, devouring dogs and hungry vultures tore. Since great Achilles and Atrides strove, such was the sovereign doom, and such the will of Jove. Declare, O Muse, in what ill-fated hour sprung the fierce strife, from what offended power Latona's son a dire contagion spread, and heaped the camp with mountains of the dead. The king of men his reverent priest defied, and for the king's offense the people died. For Chryses sought with costly gifts to gain his captive daughter from the victor's chain. Suppliant, the venerable father stands, Apollo's awful ensigns grace his hands. By these he begs, and lowly bending down, extends the scepter and the laurel crown. He sued to all, but chief implored for grace the brother kings of Atreus' royal race. Ye, kings and warriors, may your vows be crowned, and Troy's proud walls lie level with the ground. May Jove restore you when your toils are o'er, safe to the pleasures of your native shore. But oh, relieve a wretched parent's pain, and give Chryses to these arms again. If mercy fail, yet let my presence move, and dread avenging Phoebus, son of Jove. The Greeks in shouts their joint assent declare, the priest to reverence and release the fair. Not so Atrides, he with kingly pride repulsed the sacred sire, and thus replied, Hence on thy life, and fly these hostile plains, nor ask presumptuous what the king detains. Hence with thy laurel crown and golden rod, nor trust too far those ensigns of thy God. Mine is thy daughter, priest, and shall remain, and prayers and tears and bribes shall plead in vain, till time shall rifle every youthful grace, and age dismiss her from my cold embrace. In daily labors of the loom employed, or doomed to deck the bed she once enjoyed. Hence then to Argos shall the maid retire, far from her native soul and weeping sire. That's iambic pentameter rhymed couplets, heroic couplets by Alexander Pope. Two more to go. We've got the second edition, Great Books of the Western World. They switched translators in this edition, and this is a verse translation by Richmond Lattimore. Sing, goddess, the anger of Peleus' son, Achilles, and its devastation, which put pains thousandfold upon the Achaeans, hurled in their multitudes to the house of Hades strong souls of heroes, but gave their bodies to be the delicate feasting of dogs, of all birds, and the will of Zeus was accomplished. Since that time when first there stood in division of conflict Atreus' son, the lord of men, and brilliant Achilles. What god was it, then, set them together in bitter collision? Zeus's son and Leto's, Apollo, who in anger at the king drove the foul pestilence along the host, and the people perished. since Atreus' son had dishonored Chryses, priest of Apollo, when he came beside the fast ships of the Achaeans to ransom back his daughter, carrying gifts beyond count and holding in his hands wound, wound on a staff of gold, the ribbons of Apollo, who strikes from afar, and supplicated all the Achaeans, but above all Atreus' two sons, the marshals of the people. Sons of Atreus, and you other strong-grieved Achaeans, to you may the gods grant, who have their homes on Olympus, Priam's city, to be plundered and a fair homecoming thereafter. But may you give me back my own daughter, and take the ransom, giving honor to Zeus's son, who strikes from afar, Apollo. Then all the rest of the Achaeans cried out in favor that the priest be respected and the shining ransom be taken. Yet this pleased not the heart of Atreus' son Agamemnon, but harshly he drove him away with a strong order upon him. Never let me find you again, old sir, near our hollow ships, neither lingering now nor coming again hereafter, for fear your staff and the gods' ribbons help you no longer. The girl I will not give back. Sooner will old age come upon her in my own house in Argos, far from her own land, going up and down by the loom and being in my bed as my companion. So go now. Do not make me angry, so you will be safer. And that's a verse translation by Richmond Lattimore in second edition, 1990 edition of Great Books Western World. And last but not least is another Penguin Classics edition. This is the verse translation by Robert Fables. And the original copyright on this translation is 1990. Rage, goddess, sing the rage of Peleus' son Achilles, murderous, doomed, that cost the Achaeans countless losses, hurling down to the house of death so many sturdy souls, great fighters' souls, but made their bodies carrion feasts for the dogs and birds. And the will of Zeus was moving toward its end. Begin, muse, when the two first broke and clashed, Agamemnon, lord of men, and brilliant Achilles. What god drove them to fight with such a fury? Apollo, the son of Zeus and Leto. Incensed at the king, he swept a fatal plague through the army. Men were dying, and all because Agamemnon spurned Apollo's priest. Yet Chryses approached the Achaeans' fast ships to win his daughter back, bringing a priceless ransom, and bearing high in hand, wound on a golden staff, the wreaths of the god, the distant deadly archer. He begged the whole Achaean army, but most of all the two supreme commanders, Atreus' two sons, Agamemnon, Menelaus, all archives geared for war. May the gods who hold the halls of Olympus give you Priam's city to plunder, then safe passage home. Just set my daughter free, my dear one. Here, accept these gifts, this ransom, honor the god who strikes from worlds away, the son of Zeus, Apollo. And all ranks of Achaeans cried out their assent. Respect the priest, accept the shining ransom. But it brought no joy to the heart of Agamemnon. The king dismissed the priest with a brutal order ringing in his ears. Never again, old man, let me catch sight of you by the hollow ships. No, not loitering now, not slinking back tomorrow. The staff and the wreaths of God will never save you then. The girl, I won't give up the girl. Long before that, old age will overtake her in my house, in Argos, far from her fatherland, slaving back and forth at the loom, forced to share my bed. Now go, don't tempt my wrath, and you may depart alive. That is Robert Fables. So we have 6 to choose from. Feel free in the comments to rank them. List your favorites. We've got E.V. Rieu, prose translation. Martin Hammond, a prose translation. We've got Samuel Butler, another prose translation. We have Alexander Pope, heroic couplets. Richmond Lattimore, which is a verse translation. He may even be writing in hexameters. And finally, Robert Fables, another verse translation. You may be wondering which is my favorite. Well, of course, you can't tell just by reading one passage. I did try to read enough lines to give you a sense. And we'd have to read the whole thing here. I have not read all these translations. But I've read the Butler all the way through. I've read the Fables all the way through. And I don't think I've read any of the other ones all the way through. But my first take is I rather liked the E.V. Rieu prose translation, and I also really like the Robert Fables verse translation. The Alexander Pope is really impressive. Just the fact that he could write iambic pentameter on an epic scale like that and rhyme all those lines. That's impressive too. But I think I'm sort of leaning mostly right now towards E.V. Rieu and Robert Fables. What do you think? What are your favorites? I know there's other translations out there. I know there's a new translation. I think Emily Wilson has one, right? I'm reading her translation of the Odyssey right now, and it's really nice. I like it a lot. I don't have her translation, but there's a lot of translations out there to pick from, and you can hear differences, can't you? So whenever you're reading comparative literature, like works in translation, you really benefit, I think, from reading more than one translation. So give an author a chance, like the second time around, by reading it in a different take. That is all for now. I hope you enjoyed this literary shootout just for fun. It'll be fun to tally up the winner after we read the comments after a bit. Thanks for watching. Be well. Peace out. Bye-bye.